Slytherin was based on sign of Scorpio, Hufflepuff on sign of Taurus, Ravenclaw on Aquarius, and finally Gryffindor on the sign of Leo, but it's a lot more complex than this. First, you must know that every sign contains other 11 signs in itself, forming a chart with 12 houses, where one house is equal to one sign. The most important houses are the 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th. First house rules yourself and the way you live your life. Fourth house rules the way you process your emotions and your heart, it's the least visible part of yourself. Seventh house rules the side of yourself that you discover through close relationships and the type of people you're attracted to, while the 10th house rules your ambitions and how you want to represent yourself in the world. It is the most visible part of yourself. And, since Scorpio, Taurus, Leo and Aquarius are fixed signs, it means that they have each other in those important houses. For example, a Gryffindor has Leo in the 1st house, has Slytherin or Scorpio in the 4th house, and that means that they process emotions like a Slytherin, likes Ravenclaws the most or acts like a Ravenclaw in the relationships because they have Ravenclaw or Aquarius in the 7th house, while when it comes to career it's like a Hufflepuff, because they have Hufflepuff or Taurus in the 10th house. I will explain each and every house in details, and if you don't want to listen to it all, then I have the timestamps on the description down below. I will also explain why someone from a certain house acts like someone from another house. Hufflepuff. We will start with the Hufflepuffs because the biggest surprise to me is with Hufflepuffs, and you will see why. Hufflepuffs represent themselves as kind and patient and hardworking. They are definitely the nicest and the fairest house. But, Hufflepuffs can be too stubborn, and it's the hardest house to change their minds. So, how do Hufflepuffs process emotions? Hufflepuffs are at heart Gryffindors. They are very generous and brave deep down, and that is not obvious. Cedric Diggory was definitely brave, and so were many Hufflepuffs who fought against the Death Eaters during the Hogwarts battle. Hufflepuffs do not seek attention, but they do need to be praised for the good things they do and the things they achieve. If a Hufflepuff feels like they are not appreciated for things they have done, they can be quite prideful. If a Hufflepuff is overly focused with their emotions, they can be very prideful and bossy. Now, Hufflepuffs are typically very patient and they give the impression of familiarity, but once you get to know a Hufflepuff well, you notice another side of Hufflepuffs. Someone may even call a Hufflepuff boring, but once they get in a relationship with Hufflepuff, they notice that this is not true at all. Hufflepuffs can be really intense. Hufflepuffs don't want boring relationships or close friendships, for they want intense and passionate relationships. They desire soul-merging romance, and they may even like people who are troublesome or had a dark past. They may want to change a bad person into a good one. Sometimes, Hufflepuffs can become very obsessed with their friends or lover. Hufflepuffs in relationships or close friendships can be quite suspicious of their partners or friends. It all depends on what kind of person a Hufflepuff is, but when a Hufflepuff feels that they cannot trust their loved ones, they can be quite manipulative, and in extreme cases even abusive. If a Hufflepuff is too obsessed with their friends or partner, they can become ver. Why Slytherin? Why that happens? Hufflepuffs can be very easily manipulated by others, especially by someone very close to them, so they can become very protective of themselves and become very secretive, if they get hurt. However, Hufflepuffs can really empower their closed one if they want to. If a friend of theirs is having psychological problem, they can help their friends resolve their emotional problems. Now, when it comes to career, Hufflepuffs are like Ravenclaws. They don't care what the world thinks about them. Hufflepuffs are the fairest leaders, and typically they want unusual jobs. They are quite emotionally detached when it comes to their reputation, which is something in which they are quite different from Slytherins, who care a lot about their reputation. Tonks has different colored hair and doesn't care what others think about her hair, the world can see them as eccentric. Many Hufflepuffs hate usual jobs, for example Newt's greatest fear is having to work a desk job. Ravenclaw. Ravenclaws like to present themselves as clever, eccentric and smart. Some Ravenclaws may like shocking others or don't think what others think of them. Now, we say that Ravenclaws have a Hufflepuff heart. Ravenclaws are deep down very calm, and it's very hard to deeply upset them, but once they get upset, it's near to impossible to calm them. Ravenclaws tend to feel the same feelings for years. Now, we're talking about what kind of partners or close friends Ravenclaw want. They want brave friends or partners. Many even are into stars or celebrities, for example Cho Chang. Ravenclaws seem like people who don't care what others think, but once you get in a relationship or become close friends with them, you'll see that they care too much what their friends or partners think. They can be fiercely protective of their close friends or lovers. They can seem as someone who doesn't express feelings, but once you get to befriend them, you see that they will be quite expressive of their emotions to you. Ravenclaws typically date Gryffindors or people with lots of confidence and courage. Immature Ravenclaws may demand tons of attention from their partners and tend to be dramatic in worst cases, for example Cho Chang. On the other hand, they can be deeply fond of their friends or partners, for example Luna Lovegood, who had drawings of the Golden Trio in her room. When it comes to their career, they can be quite secretive. They may want to keep their career goals a secret. They can be just as power-hungry as Slytherins when it comes to their career. If a Ravenclaws are too obsessed with their career goals, they can quite ruthless and manipulative. You have noticed how Professor Quirrell managed to trick almost everyone that he's innocent and harmless. Also, Ravenclaws can easily be manipulated by their leader or boss like Quirrell was manipulated by Voldemort. Slytherin. Slytherins are quite secretive, and it's very to know them. Although, more than any other house, Slytherin is the easiest one to be manipulate, and that's why many of them put such a strong front, but also it's true that Slytherins can be quite good in manipulating others. Unlike Hufflepuffs, who can be easily manipulated by only closed ones. Also, Slytherins dislike appearing weak in front of others. Now, Slytherins have a Ravenclaw heart. They are detached from their emotions, thinking as if they are above them. They may have unusual feelings, and sometimes emotions may catch them off guard. Emotions change very quickly for them. If a Slytherin is quite withdrawn, they can be Ravenclaw hatstall. They may love books and have many hobbies. So, Slytherins can be quite passionate and intense, but once you are close friends with them, you'll see that they are pretty normal and predictable. It's not uncommon for a Slytherin to marry a Hufflepuff. Typically, Slytherins befriend someone they have known for a long time or someone with the same roots as themselves. That's why most Slytherins like to only marry someone with the same origin as them, even though they may marry someone they grew up with. That's very different from Gryffindors, who might prefer to marry someone from a different background. For example, Andromeda Black was probably friends with Tonks for a long time. In general, Slytherins like people who are patient, kind and hardworking. On the other hand, Slytherins are the hardest to befriend, but once you become close, they will become very attached to you and be very nice to you. The downside of this is that Slytherins may have trouble leaving a partner or friend, even if the relationship becomes rather toxic and abusive. For example, the mother of Snape didn't leave her husband despite him being very abusive. So, Slytherins can be really attached to their partners, and their love might not ever change, for example Snape, Bloody Baron, Voldemort's mother she's a Slytherin. If a Slytherin is very focused on their closed ones, they may be Hufflepuff hatstall. Now, let's talk about their aspirations and ambitions in life. Slytherins desire becoming leaders or stars of some sort. Draco Malfoy envied Harry because Harry was exactly as famous as Draco wanted to be. Unlike Hufflepuffs, Slytherins care deeply about what the public says about them. If they get humiliated in public, it would hurt them a lot, unlike Hufflepuffs who wouldn't care. Slytherins would be very generous leaders, but very bossy. If a Slytherin is too much focused on their goals, they would be quite brave and bossy, and would be Gryffindor hatstalls. Gryffindor. I chose Gryffindor last, because we know tons about them. Gryffindors are generous, brave, but bossy. They are the most assertive house, and the more withdrawn Gryffindors are Slytherin hatstalls. So, Gryffindors are at heart Slytherins. Their feelings can be really intense and extreme. Gryffindor, more than any other house, doesn't like to show their feelings. If a shy Gryffindor feels weak and has a weak character, they may be quite manipulative, secretive and ruthless in their pursuit of power, for example Peter Pettigrew, who probably resented his friends for years. Not all Slytherins are evil, manipulative and ruthless, so not every withdrawn Gryffindor will be bad, they will just be more secretive than a usual Gryffindor. Therefore they are Slytherin's hatstalls. Withdrawn Gryffindors are the easiest to manipulate among Gryffindors, for example Ginny Weasley when she tricked by Voldemort through her diary. Gryffindors, as I said earlier, tend to prefer partners or friends from a different background than them. They are very accepting of others, and become close friends with Gryffindors is a lot easier than becoming close friends with a Slytherin and a Hufflepuff. After them are Ravenclaws, but with Gryffindors are the easiest to befriend. However, as romantic partners Gryffindors can be quite difficult, because they are very fond of their freedom. Their romantic feelings may change abruptly, and many Gryffindors are players, for example Charlie Weasley and Sirius Black. Gryffindors want independent partners, for example Harry didn't like Ginny until she became more assertive and came out of her shell. If a Gryffindor is focused on others, they may be Ravenclaw hatstall. Now, after Hufflepuffs, Gryffindors are the best leaders. They can be incredibly calm, but incredibly stubborn as well, for example Albus Dumbledore never lost his temper unless one of the students was being threatened. Gryffindors may have a hard time trying to decide their career pursuits, but once they decide they are unlikely to change their minds. For example, Weasley twins opened a joke shop no matter what their mother said to them. Harry always wanted to become a Auror, and Hermione never changed her mind about her goal to empower the House Elves.